Alright, what we're going to do today, we're going to go ahead and install the pigtail for the LiPo battery connection for the main power. We'll hook this up here. We'll also get the, we'll create a jumper for the 5 volt to power the flight controller. And I'll show you guys when we get to it. I went ahead and created the harness for the Runcam Swift 2. And we'll go ahead and solder that in on the 12 volt rail. Alright, in the pack with the xHover with the frame, they provide the pigtail for the LiPo. And that's really, it's just going to solder on here. And there's also two holes here that you can put a zip tie through to kind of hold these wires down and give a little bit more support. So if something happens, you know, whenever you crash, it doesn't rip it off the PDB. Alright, so on this frame, it's the battery mounts on the bottom. We'll put a Velcro, a LiPo strap between the PDB and the frame. Straps the battery down here. Here's a pigtail to plug it in. So what I'm going to use for the 5 volt jumper to power the flight controller, I've just got a spare servo connector here. If you do this a couple of times, you'll end up, by a couple of parts, you'll end up with plenty of these types of wires as a spare. Even if you don't, some of the wires that we had cut off from the motors that we didn't use, you could use those as a lead. Even these, that we haven't even soldered in yet. I mean, flight controller is going to go on top. This is going to mount, it's going to solder in roughly around this area. So you're going to end up with plenty of wire left there. You could always just go ahead and snip it and use any of these cables too. It's only going to be 5 volts going through it, so let's cut this off to make our lead here. And alright, so I'll show you the FPV camera. Here's the Runcam Swift 2. This came in earlier in the week. This wire here, which is a VBAT wire, this is going to go straight to battery voltage, so it goes straight to the positive. What this has is an OSD. That's going to tell me on the screen in the FPV view, and the fat chart's just going to tell me what the battery voltage is, so I can see that in real time. Here's the rest of the wire harness that goes with it. So what I did was made a little pigtail. I took the harness that goes to the video transmitter, and I really just put the pins in, made them up into that harness there, just kind of made it look all nice and neat and pretty. Here's positive and ground for 12 volt. So we'll go ahead and solder that on, as well as our VBAC connection here. And really, I don't need this long of a VBAC connection wire, but I really don't want to cut the wire either, because as time goes by, you end up having to use it in different rigs. But I'll make it a little bit longer, or a little bit shorter. Or I could go to that. No, let's just make it shorter. So Runcam will sit here, it's going to plug in, the video transmitter is going to sit under the top plate, have it plug in there. What we'll do now is we'll open up the flight controller. So here it is, this is the RaceFlight Revolt version 2. Open that for you. This Dollar Tree blade is gonna hurt somebody. Sorry, Dollar Store blade. It's gonna hurt somebody. Here we have the flight controller itself. It's got an arrow on it that's pointing forward that lets you know which way to face it. Sit like that. Screw in. It has a super sensitive gyro, SSG. I don't know if they call that super secret or if it's for super sensitive, but all the sensitivity going around on these gyros, on these flight controllers, it's supposed to be a good thing. I think it's more of a headache. What they do is they give you these rubber grommets. These rubber grommets are vibration dampeners. You can see it gives the dampening properties on both the top and the bottom of the flight controller. Spot here, of course, you should recognize as the mini or micro USB. This is how you will communicate with the flight controller to set it up for the configuration. So this is going to be a little bit of planning on how it is that I want to run the wiring. Front of the quad arrow is pointing to the front. We still have these 4 screws here we need to use to secure this, but get it not too tight. You still want to give some kind of room for vibration. As you can see here, it kind of moves. The board itself, I'll try to hold it still or hold it close enough. I don't know if you can see it or if it's in focus, but the pads tell you there's motor 3, motor 4, motor 1, motor 2. Tells you what goes to what. Flipping on the back side, this will let you know there's RX, TX, ground. Your buzzers, your LEDs, which I did buy an LED board. I'll show you that whenever we get ready to install it as well. But this is where you're going to hook up your receiver. You're going to solder your receiver in. You're going to solder the ESC signal wires in. Right there where you can see it says N3 ground. So N3 is signal, ground of course is ground. It's black. They'll solder in there. Alright. Alright, so what I did off camera was I went ahead and tinned the solder pads on the flight controller. I got online, I looked up the Revolt version 2 flight controller wiring diagram, which told me which solder pads I needed for which wires, for which pins. It's also etched on the bottom. I don't know if that's going to focus, if you'll be able to see it. It tells you which pad does what. But I went ahead and saved you the pain and agony of watching me do that on camera. I just went ahead and tinned the solder pads there that I needed. So right here, this is the jumper, the pigtail we have going from the 5-volt rail off the power distribution board. And according to the diagram, I'm looking at it on the computer, I got a laptop on the workbench. According to the diagram, ground is up top. So let's get this going. I'll go ahead and solder. I'll solder the 5-volt connection to it, and I'll do one of the ESCs. It goes to these corners here. You got ESC connection there, 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 and there. That's just going to be the ground and the signal wire, so we can communicate. But I'll solder one of those up, take the rest of it offline just to save on some time. We'll take the ESC wire. This shows it's etched on the board M1 and ground for those two pads there. So the white wire is the signal, which will go to M1. Black wire, of course, is ground. You just want to make sure that you have enough to reach there. Don't cut it too short. Don't cut it too long. You don't want anything getting caught up in the props. Again, more spare wire. Here's the first motor. The other three are going to wire in the same way. And while I'm off camera, I'll go ahead and wire in. I'll wire in all 4 motors. I'll probably go ahead and wire in the LED lights I bought and buzzer. I may or may not do that on camera, but I'll show it to you. I got a it's a Matek tail light and loud buzzer LED. Put this sticker on here. And I'll show it to you. There we go. It's got a loud buzzer, which is also a lost model alarm. LEDs can change color, programmable color switch there for the color or the blinking pattern, or to keep it solid. And you'll see on the back there's the solder pads. Like I said, it's always good you have spare wire. So I'll just make up a jumper. I'll tin these and put them to the solder pads where it's applicable according to the diagram online for the flight controller. Alright, now I've soldered in all 4 ESCs, the signaling ground wire, all 4 spots there on the flight controller. What I started working on was the LED and buzzer from Matek that I want to have mounted on the back. So I went ahead and soldered the leads, the pigtails, these leads that I need here, and tinned them off. you'll see this goop. This is hot glue. I tend to use hot glue on a lot of the smaller solder joints, and you'll see it if you look closely on the big ones too, on the power distribution board. That's just because I've had in the past, whenever I've been flying, if I had a kind of odd crash, it might rip the wire loose, and when that happens, it can also rip the solder pad loose, and you can fix that possibly. Most people end up just having to buy a new component, and that's pretty much what it was that I had to do in the past when it's happened. So I like to put hot glue on there just to try to keep everything in place, keep it from moving around, try to support it during impact. But I've run into some problems trying to be able to figure out the wiring for this. I've got to get the buzzer. Let's see, the buzzer goes here. The buzzer and the LED signal and ground go here. LED power is going to another 5-volt rail off the flight controller there. And with everything starting to get a little cramped up back here in the back, with these smaller builds, they tend to get that way. With everything starting to get a little bit cramped up with the wiring here, I ended up having to move the video transmitter harness out the side instead of out of the back, but that's not really a big deal. So I measured the wires off. I wanted to be able to have enough wire in here, because they do seem pretty long considering they're only going that far. I wanted to have enough wire in here so in case if needed, I can always pull this LED board up if I need to get anything that's back here, if I might need to do that instead of desoldering everything. And I'm going to run this wire. It's actually for the power for that board. It's actually going to run under the flight controller, between the flight controller and the PDB. And I'm just going to run it that way. So I'll get this soldered in. Like I said, it's going to these pads according to the wiring diagram for the flight controller. It's going to go over to these pads. Let me pull this up on the laptop here so I'll see what it is that I'm doing. Always double check your connections and make sure you got the right connections going to the right place. And I tend to double and triple check nowadays. I'm trying to keep as much off the top of this board as I can, because I plan to, the next step's going to be installing the FR Sky X4 RSB, the receiver, so that you can communicate with it for the remote. And when I get that installed, and I'll show you guys what I'm planning on doing, I'm just going to de-pin it, and I'll show you what I'm talking about with that here in just a few minutes. But I'm going to stick it onto the top of the flight controller, try to keep everything compact. I'm doing my best to be able to keep as much as I can off of this top plate. I just want to be able to remove the top plate when necessary and not have to affect most of the wiring here. If I can get it set where the only thing I have to do to remove the top plate is unplug the wiring harness for the video transmitter, and everything else will just come off, and then I can see all the wiring in there, or get to it to tidy it up or to resolder something if needed. Then that's my goal of what it is that I'm trying to do right here. So soldering iron's good. Let's get you primed up. All right. Alright, so now we've got our LED board installed. This board comes with these two holes on each side there. Just take a zip tie, tie them to the standoffs. Integrated buzzer. Good to go. But I'll do that part off camera you don't have to see me fiddle around with it. All right, here is the FrSky X4R SB receiver. This is going to be running S-Bus to the flight controller. This is what communicates with your remote control. I've got a Taranis X9D Plus remote. And let's get here. Of course, you get your wiring harness. You get leads, more plastic. So here's the antennas. Here's the module itself. What I'm going to do, I've already removed the plastic pieces. Typically these pins right here come with I guess these plastic spacers that'll come on here. It just takes a little bit of work. I was able to pry these off without really damaging the pins too much. I'm going to snip this bit of tape, heat shrink that's keeping this cover on. I'm going to remove these pins. These pins are pretty long. You see there's not really a good spot that I can put this in with these pins. It's going to save us a little bit of room. I know people that like to count the grams and the weight and things like that on this stuff. A lot of times they'll do it because it weighs however many more grams, but I'm not as much into that as I am about saving the room. So I'll pull these pins off. I'll cut this case open. Let's see if I can get this to come off now. I'll show you guys. Let's pry the sticky goop off of it. There's the case. We'll hold on to it because I need to be able to see which pins are what. I'm sure I've got it right in front of me on the laptop. Anyway, but what we'll do is I'll throw this on the helping hands here, and I'll heat the bottom part of each one of these up, pull each one of these pins out, clean up the solder, and only wire the connections that I need off of here. This will give me telemetry as well, where it'll transmit the voltage of my LiPo battery, tell me how much power I have left. It'll transmit that to the Taranis and will tell me how much is on there. I don't necessarily need that portion because with the Runcam, with the FPV camera I'm going to use, it's also going to show me in the camera as well what my voltage is live. But I'll get this depinned, and once it's depinned, I'm going to use some double-sided tape to mount it and stick it right there on top of the flight controller. And we'll be back once I get that done. Alright, so here is the FrSky X4R SB depinned. I'm glad I did that off camera because it was a pain trying to get all of these pins out of it. But a little bit of heat, a little bit of patience, solder, I was able to get them out. And I went ahead and put wires on here for my negative, positive, and S-Bus signal wire. The FrSky also comes with a smart port adapter that plugs in. So wiring harness plugs in here. Out of the 4 wires that plugged in, I really only needed 1, so I went ahead and pulled the rest of the wires out. And this will plug in on the side there. That helps, that gives the telemetry reading and sends it to the receiver. So I'd like to mount this on top of the flight controller there. I have some 3M double-sided tape that I'll use. Mount this on the flight controller. Let's see. I've got power signal, power, ground, and signal need to go to these pads here. This yellow wire for telemetry needs to go to that pad. And let me try to find the best way that I want to put that in there. I don't want too much wire, but I hate cutting out all of the wire. Alright, so I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue on those, especially since they're on the edge right there. Hold those down. I'll probably go ahead and hot glue these wires down as well. As long as I'm good there. Looks like I'm good there. Alright, and then next up is going to be the video transmitter. Alright, so now we have our receiver in. Put a little bit of hot glue on the wires, especially since they're in a pretty vulnerable spot right there on the edges that way of the flight controller. What I want to do now is I want to go ahead, before I get the video transmitter mounted in place, I want to go ahead and put the FPV camera on here, which I've got the Runcam Swift 2. This one's got a built-in OSD. Camera's going to sit here, so what I was looking at is xHover comes with camera brackets to mount it, so it should mount in this way. The problem I'm running into is getting the camera brackets in. It looks like the Runcam's pushing that off just a little bit more than what I feel comfortable with. I'm sure I could possibly try to wedge it in there, but I'm a little bit worried with this carbon fiber that if I do that, a decent impact on the front may end up causing an issue. So I just don't want to break these brackets here, be in the middle of the field. So luckily with the Runcam you also get a bracket to mount it. If I can show you guys. So it mounts this way. You can go ahead and set your angle, camera angle. So what I believe I will do is mount this bracket in here, and this should allow me to mount the Runcam as needed, so to say. But yep, that's what I'm going to go for. So in the package with the Runcam you get hardware. You get several things, but one of the things is a bag of hardware, of course. So more screws, more bolts, more keys. All right. Let's get all this separated to the side here. So these go for the camera to screw in for the mounting. These go there. So let's try to get this going. Also, with the Runcam Swift, you get a pigtail for the OSD. This comes with a small remote, like some of the other Runcam models. Runcam Al Plus has this as well. This is where you configure the OSD for the screen, which is on-screen display. So let's see which way this is supposed to go. I will go ahead and mount this in here as well. Alright. Such a struggle, I think I'm going to leave you in. Alright there, so we've got camera installed. Only thing left to do is figure out where and how we want to put the video transmitter. There we go. So whew, that was fun. A lot of this looks really tedious with all these wiring, all this little solder points, things like that. You see I put a piece of sticky tape on here that apparently is not holding well. I'll put a bigger one on there. It's cool. Just hold these wires down for me. I still want to be able to access the push button for the receiver because I still haven't bound it to the Tyrannus yet, and there is the LEDs to tell me which mode it's in. But here's the video transmitter. I just have an ESC. It's a ET200R. It's 200 milliwatt. It's got race band on it as indicated by the R, of course. Push button LED setup, so it tells me which band I'm on and which channel I'm on. So I will get this to, probably going to use either a cable tie or sticky tape. I guess that's the technological term for it. Sticky tape. Sticky tape. And then I'll run the antenna out the back for the video and pull this around and get this plugged in. So I guess the best way for me to mount that, I wanted to avoid mounting anything so close to the top plate because I want to be able to use these straps to put this GoPro session on. But I don't think I have a choice here. Couple more things to tidy up. We should be almost done. So I still need to put the tie wraps on the LED. See here. Alright. We're good. The OCD in me is going to go crazy with that not being even. Okay. Now we've got video transmitter. Since I planned it out so well with this wiring here, it's got to plug in on that side. You see that? You see that? It's awesome. It's exactly what it was that I wanted. I'm being facetious. That is not what I wanted. And I want more holding that down. So let's tape it. I'm going to pull this paper backing off so the tape may stick a little bit better. First cable tie that I had holding this down, I had to cut that off because it was driving me crazy trying to get this done. Trying to get the tape on there under it with it already tied in. Alright, so we got our video transmitter here. That's going to plug in. Like so. There. And our antenna, have a TBS Triumph stubby antenna. Alright, and there you have it. xHover R5LX. This is going to, I'll connect this here whenever I get it up in the air so that I can set up the OSD on the camera, and then I will take this and I'll tuck it away inside where it can't be seen. See, there's the inside of it. Got the electronics protected for the most part, best I could, as far as using hot glue. There's no side skirts, anything like that. I'll have to keep this in, not when it comes to these type of racers. I was able to keep most everything off of this top plate so that in the event of a crash, when it rolls, nothing happens. I need to go ahead and put what I'll do with these is I'm actually going to use a tie wrap and have them come out the back right here. And then I'm going to use heat shrink and put it on over the tie wrap so it keeps it a bit rigid. We also have to put the strap on the bottom as well. The xHover strap for the battery. Alright, I'll show you guys one last thing that I'm doing with the receiver antennas. Also, I went ahead and put the xHover battery strap on there for the LiPo. What I've done is I've put 2 zip ties here around the standoffs on the bottom. I'm going to take the antenna, I'm going to wrap it around just a little bit, try to take up some of that space. Wrap it around the zip tie. Throw some heat shrink on it. You see that came unwrapped already. It's alright. Let's measure the heat shrink out. It's going to be right there. Roughly. So the prop spin, just help push these down, keep them out of the way of the props. Alright, and we're good to go. Alright, build's complete. So looking back over everything, anything that I didn't have on video to show you guys really was just continuity checks. And towards the end, whenever I got ready to put the LiPo on and make the initial power up on it, I did use a smoke stopper. Smoke stopper is really just a device with a bulb built-in line for the battery that will limit the current so you don't fry any components if you do have any wires crossed, anything like that. Here she is. I got the props on, battery's mounted on the bottom with the strap. And I'll show it to you guys. LEDs, everything works. The only thing left to do, there we go. The only thing left to do really, I need to go back in with the USB port, go into RaceFlight Configurator, which is the software for the flight controller, and calibrate the motors. The motors and the ESCs, go ahead and get those calibrated. Get this unplugged before it starts beeping at us. I'll get that calibrated, do a little bit of PID tuning, and get it in the air. Yeah, if you have any questions on this build, feel free to post them in the comments.